All right, cool. So let's get started. An opener, so you can start with this. You okay?
Napa cabbage down the wrong. Napa cabbage is bad. Oh, there it comes.
That's disgusting.
I literally felt it fly out of my throat back up into my mouth.
I really did not need to hear that. All right. Great start. Cool. Here we go. Welcome to Unqualified Opinion, the podcast that proves that not everyone can make a podcast. How's it going, Scott?
Oh, it's going well. I'm watching my my chewing noises show up on my. I have a fancy new recording system. I can see when I chew. It has a little boop 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 boop.
Yes, not only do you have a fancy new recording system, you have a brand new computer, which is awesome, and I'd love to hear about it. But before that, let me just bitch for 1 second and say just thank God you got this, because last week was the third time now that somehow you've had technical issues and we lost a full podcast. So I'm super happy to hear that you got a new computer and that we are smooth sailing from here on out. How is your new computer?
I mean, it's a computer. Like, what do you say about a computer? It works. It's fat. I don't know anything about computers.
Okay, do I have to walk you through this? Okay, here we go. What is the computer that you got?
It's an Acer, which is. I think Acer used to be a really shitty brand. I think, in fact, I know it used to be a really shitty brand. And I think it's improved significantly, as just price of materials goes down and technology gets better. I think it's a pretty good quality product for a pretty cheap price.
What was the price?
$500.
$500.
Yeah.
That's a very good price. How does it compare to the Chromebook?
Chromebooks now you get the Google Chromebook is $1,000.
What?
I kid you not.
Why is it so expensive?
One, it's really great craftsmanship. It's the whole thing is aluminum, and it's really fast. I don't know, and I don't know why it's that much. What else do you want to know? It's a big screen. It's a big screen.
Well, yeah. What's the size of it?
I don't know. It's like if you took a book that's about this size of a book and opened the book up, it's about that big. I mean, it's a pretty big screen.
You know, our listeners don't have video, so
well, imagine like a larger book, and you opened up a larger book. It's about the size.
Like,
of,
is it a 15-inch? 16-inch?
Yeah, 15-inch. That's what
15-inch. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't like it when laptops get bigger than 13-inch, because then it's a little bit more awkward to just like throw them into any bag that you have, because only larger backpacks are going to hold them. So I'm not really a fan of anything that's more than 13-inch.
The problem is it's so uncommon now to get. I mean, you can get 13-inch laptops, but most laptops are not 13 inches anymore. That's what I found.
Yeah.
Everyone wants the big laptops. So even the budget laptops, they don't really have 13-inch ones. It's just because it's not very expensive to make a 15-inch versus a 13-inch. I mean, you just slightly more materials, but everything else is the same.
So I do have to ask you, why did you choose a PC and not a Mac?
I hate Macs.
Why is that?
I hate Mac software.
Really?
And also, I don't have any Apple things.
You have an iPhone, right?
Which I don't like. Next time I'm going to...
Really? You don't like your iPhone?
I don't like smartphones. I want to get a phone that... I'm addicted to it. I'm addicted to it. I want to get a phone that's like not a touch screen. Or a touch screen, but like very, very simple.
You've got to stop chewing while you're talking.
I'm almost done. I'm almost done.
God. Production standards just going out the window.
No, I mean...
Wait. Tell me more. I got really distracted by your chewing, but tell me about your gripes with the iPhone.
Oh, it's just gripes with phones in general.
Okay, just smartphones?
And also, like, why would I pay $1,000, $1,500 for a laptop to do web searches on? Like, why would I pay that much money? It just made any sense.
So I used to be on Windows PCs, and then I moved to Linux, and then more recently, within the last like 3-ish years, I've moved to Macs. And once you start using a Mac, you really can't go back to PCs. It's really just a wholly different experience. Everything is much more integrated. It works together. The UI is consistent. I mean, for me as a software engineer, I know a lot about the internal directory structure and all of that stuff, and can use the command line and stuff. But one of the benefits I do think is that you don't really need to know a lot of that stuff. Whereas on a PC, you have to understand how the files are set up and all this kind of stuff. That stuff is abstracted away from you. And also, it's just like a really pleasant UI. And the hardware is just like the tactile response of it is really nice. Now, granted, the new like low rise shitty keyboards that they have are absolutely horrendous, but other than that, the thing about a Mac is it feels much more kind of complete and secure and consistent, right? Like it feels like reliable hardware and software, whereas on a PC things crash all the time. It gets really slow over time. Sometimes it feels like everything's disjointed. It's just not a consistent experience.
I don't know. That's your experience. I had a MacBook Air. I hated it.
Really?
I had it for 3 years, and it was a piece of shit. It lasted really well, and then, once it started, 3 years in, it just started, I don't know, very slow, freezes all the time. You get the stupid spinning wheel. I hate that colored spinning wheel. It's stupid.
Oh, yeah,
it's
the wheel
stupid.
of death.
The wheel of death. I don't know. I didn't like it. I like looking under the hood. I like knowing a little bit more how it's working.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I tore out all my basement walls. I like to see what's inside.
That's fair. That's fair.
I like more control over it.
One of the other reasons for me, and I guess this really wouldn't apply for you, because use cases matter too, right? Like you're not going to fork over $2,000 for a MacBook Pro to surf the web and write documents, right? Like that's never going to work. But for me, it makes sense, especially because PCs, from the engineering standpoint, are really hard to code on. It's just, and I don't want to get into the details here.
No, let's not get into the details.
But it's just, in order to set up a coding environment in various different languages and to be able to implement certain software that's really helpful for doing software engineering, PCs, it's a lot harder to do that with than it would be for Mac, because a Mac is more similar to Linux. It's based on the underlying.
I don't think
kernel,
anyone
but
understood anything you just said.
I'm just saying, like, it's noticeably easier to program on a Mac than a PC.
Okay, I'll leave it there.
We'll leave it there. High level. But anyway, after all my shitting on your PC, how are you liking it?
Here's how I judge. Is it fast, and does it freeze? And so far, it's fast and hasn't frozen, so it's great. And it was $500. And I actually like the big screen because I have a work laptop. So if I'm doing work remotely, I'll take my work laptop with me. And it's a little smaller. And I don't care if it gets banged up because it's not mine.
Yep.
This, I'm probably just going to leave here. And I do like the large screen because you can do split screen. And I really have a hard time. I do a lot of things where I have to look at one thing and another thing at the same time. Mm-hmm. On a 13-inch screen, it's noticeably different to have the 2 more inches diagonal to do 2 things at the same time. So,
that's interesting.
I like that.
For me, I'm more of an all or nothing approach. I won't split screen on a laptop, and I will only do it when I have actual monitors.
Well, see, but if you have a bigger screen,
maybe, yeah. Maybe if I had like 17 inches or something, that'd be more.
I don't know. I opened this box, and when it said 15 inches, I wasn't sure how big that was. I just knew it was, larger than what I used to have. And I opened it up, and I'm like, holy shit. This thing is massive. It's like I don't know where it stops. It just keeps going.
So you didn't go to a store. You just bought it online?
I bought it online, yeah.
Nice. I guess that's what people do these days, so. Yeah,
there's no such.
sense.
I don't think there's a such thing as an Acer's. I have to go like a.
No,
Best
you go
Buy
to
or
Best
something.
Buy. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. It's good.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate being able to like actually download software.
So what else is new?
Getting ready for my trip, which is actually quite a ways away, but I'm excited. Going to the Southwest.
I don't think we talked about it on the podcast. What's this trip?
Going down to the Southwest to go backpacking up in the desert or out in the desert. So
Where exactly?
I don't know yet. I'm gonna land in Las Vegas and then I'll just pick a direction to go.
You're still feeling comfortable just going by yourself?
Of course, I feel comfortable going by myself.
I
What kind of
you
question
know,
is that?
This it really makes me nervous that you keep on just deciding to go backpacking by yourself. It's like you don't realize the actual risk there.
Says, oh, Steve, don't be such a hypocrite.
I'm not
You
being
do
a
more risky
hypocrite.
behavior than I do.
No, I don't. No, I really do think that the problem with backpacking by yourself, you just don't have anyone to kind of double check things with. And it's really important because you have so much gear that you make sure that you have everything. And then let's say you do get injured, then you're kind of left on your own. You don't have anyone to help you out. You don't have anyone
The
to
only
support
time
you.
I've had major screw-ups backpacking is when I was with you.
That's true. And that was actually
Twice.
my fault.
Both times.
Wait, when was the second time?
Ran out of food. Because I put you in charge of buying the food.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
We ran out.
I don't think we ran out. I think we could have made it the additional day that we ended up.
We didn't
bailing
have
on.
enough, really.
Like, we would have been a little hungry by the end of the day, but we would have made it. It's not like we would have died of starvation. Like, we would have been fine.
We were in the car back, and we were eating peanut butter out of a squeeze tube.
No,
Because
you were eating peanut butter out of a squeeze tube. I was waiting until we got to the restaurant to put my peanut butter on a burger.
I see your point, though.
But yes, you're right. You're right. I mean, you've never really fucked up. All the fuck ups have been me. That's true. But what if the first time you fuck up, you don't have me there to help you?
I don't know how much help you would be.
Probably not a lot.
Probably not a lot.
Moral support?
And then, I'm just going to use his name because whatever. To go to Atlanta.
You know that just means that you're making me have to go back and edit and bleep it out, right?
I couldn't have described this person without mentioning his name. It would have been like charades. He wants me to go to Atlanta with him at the end of February just for the hell of it. I'm like, so that might be another trip.
Do you have any interest in Atlanta?
I've never been.
Why Atlanta?
It's warm.
I guess.
It's a big city. It's like the fourth biggest city in the U.S. It's huge.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's massive.
No way. All
Yeah.
right. No, I'm looking this up.
It's in the
There's no
top
way
10.
Atlanta
It's in the
is the
top 10.
fourth biggest cities.
No, Philadelphia is the
10
fourth biggest city.
Largest cities in U.S. I'm looking this shit up. All right. So actually, what do you think the first few are going to be obvious? Number one is.
New York,
Okay. Number two.
L.A.,
These should be gimmies. Number three.
Chicago,
Yep. Number four.
Philadelphia,
No.
Houston,
Houston. Yeah.
then
Houston
Philadelphia.
at 2.3 million for the 2018 estimate. Chicago's at 2.7. So number five. This one you'll never get.
Phoenix.
It is. Oh wow.
I'm not looking.
Really nice. Phoenix at 1.6, and then what's number six? This is the last one I'll do.
Is it another Texan city, or is it Philadelphia? Philadelphia.
It's Philadelphia. It's Philadelphia. Yep. And then after that, it's San Antonio, and then San Diego. Anyway, that's
But
interesting.
here, let's do one other one because this is interesting. Because you look at the city population as the city boundaries, but some of the city boundaries are so wacky that you don't know if you're in the city or out of the city. So they're actually metro areas: New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. Then
Mhm.
it's actually Dallas, and then Houston.
Really? Wait, it's Dallas is number 4, and then Houston's number 5?
Dallas, Fort Worth are
Uh-huh.
two different cities, but it's the same city
Yeah.
because you can't tell. It's like the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
And then it's D.C., then Philadelphia, then Miami, and then Atlanta.
DC Metro's bigger than Philadelphia Metro?
They're almost identical.
That's surprising, though. I would not have expected that.
And then Miami, and then Atlanta. Okay.
Miami, surprisingly large too.
So
Huh.
Atlanta's in the top 10. Top 10.
Atlanta, as cities go.
I think it's a smaller city because I think it has pretty small boundaries.
Oh, Atlanta, 37. So not doing so hot on the cities list, but so doing all right for metros. We sound much more in sync now than we used to. I think that's also your computer. You know, when I used to edit it, I would have to deliberately stagger them because there was always this delay. This new computer thing is really
Who knew that the thing the audio went into had an impact?
You know what you should do? You should write this off as a business tax
Business. Oh, you're such. I can't do that unless it's incorporated as an LLC.
Shit, which we can totally do. I've already done it for one company and it's total bullshit. So
I've spent money on this. I want that money. I should have a tax write-off on that.
oh fuck, man.
As should you.
I pay more than $100 a year to host our site on Podbean.
Also, you don't itemize, so
I do not itemize.
Too bad for you.
Do you itemize? Are
I
you
do
serious?
now. Yes,
Really?
because of all the property tax I pay.
Isn't the standard deduction like higher now with
Yeah,
like Trump's tax
still,
breaks or whatever?
Yes, I'm still itemizing. I have.
Really? Do you? So you do your own taxes? Do you do TurboTax or do you do?
Yeah, I do
like-
TurboTax.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have this friend who just doesn't even use TurboTax and just does the actual tax returns himself. And I just thought, like, that's kind of impressive that you can do this, but what is the point of this skill?
I have no idea. Well, it can get really, really complicated, and you do need a person there because there are gray areas in the tax code. So, but you're not at that level yet.
Oh, no.
Because I don't think you have shell
get to that.
companies.
No, I'm not.
So
I don't even think I wrote anything about my company on my previous tax return.
you could get write-offs for that.
Yeah. No, I should have. Yeah.
I don't know. I like TurboTax because it has this little ticker that shows you how much money you're going to get back as you
Yeah.
put it. It's kind of fun.
And then sometimes you think it's going to go up a lot and it goes up like $10. And you're like, what happened?
I
Now that
I
I
know.
make a reasonable amount of money, I do kind of feel the pain of tax season where sometimes okay, so the thing is when I was a student, I would get back thousands of dollars. Now I get back maybe $23. And I'm like, "Hey, I paid so much money in taxes. Like so much of my money went to taxes and I'm getting nothing back." It's like, I expect as much back as I did when I was a student. Come on. Where's my money going?
Stop bitching. Jesus Christ.
I want my money.
You're going to be Republican
Yeah,
before long.
oh, God. My money's going to support people like Scott. Are you serious?
No, it is not.
Your fucking salary.
It's going to support people like, well, if I worked at the county of D.C., it doesn't have it. If I worked for the city of D.C., yes, it would be supporting me. But
Why is it different with county?
well, I don't think D.C. has a county.
Oh, yeah. No.
No, well, no. The city actually generally takes more taxes than the county, but the federal government takes the most taxes
Yeah.
out of all of them by a large margin. And spends
True.
it spends it on Social Security.
Pretty much.
No, it spends it on defense. Social Security is a separate thing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's a great pyramid scheme that will come crashing down before we get any benefits from it. So that's fun.
I should have used that opportunity to flip my meat. It needs to
God,
be
okay,
flipping.
so that's probably what the name of this episode is going to be, Flip My Meat. And it can be
I
taken
was-
however people want.
I was saving that one up for you.
Nice teeing it up. I'm going to write that down before I forget. God damn. Flip my meat. I have this, like, random piece of paper that I write shit about the podcast on very rarely. And if someone walked into my room and saw this, they would think I'm a serial killer. Yeah, I mean, you should see the most recent episode names. None of them make sense. I mean,
Did
none
they
of
ever
them
make sense?
make sense. No, they don't really. Like the last one was called For Your Torso. The one before that was called Get That Donut.
Get that donut.
The one before that was called Functional Golden Toilet. And
Oh,
before
I
that, it
remember
was
that one.
Miss the Ostriches. So it's getting weirder and weirder every time. I don't know. Anyway.
You want to do drinks?
Yeah, let's do drinks.
This-
So I'll
Half
go
an hour
first.
in, we haven't talked about anything.
I know, right? It's getting worse and worse every
I
single
know,
time.
it's, we get to the end of it. We haven't even done a podcast. It's been 2 hours.
So I am drinking a beer that's called Strawberry Letter 23, and it's supposedly a tart strawberry IPA. It's
What was the
7
name? Strawberry what?
Strawberry Letter 23. And it's a tart strawberry IPA, Dunklin Brewing Company in Maryland, and it's 7.1%. And here's the thing, right? I bought this thinking that was going to be an interesting IPA. This is basically a sour. Like, do you like sour
Yeah.
beers?
Mm-mm. I don't.
I'm like hit or miss on sours. I've been more into them lately. The problem with sours, and the problem with sours on a podcast where you're supposed to get drunk, is that it's hard to drink a lot of them. Not that that's going to stop me. I've already finished one, and I'm halfway through another one. And I've got 2 more after that. But I was wondering, like, why are they calling this an IPA when it's clearly a sour? And also, what makes a beer a sour? Actually, I'm going to look that up. Give me a second.
You say sour really weird.
Sour?
Sour.
Sour. You're saying it with a W.
Sour. It has a W in it.
No, it isn't. It's SOUR. What are you talking about? You're your Midwestern standards for language. Okay, let's see. So sour beer, intentionally acidic, tart, or sour taste. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Unlike modern brewing, which is done in a sanitary environment to guard against intrusion of
An
wild yeast,
unsanitary environment.
historically, the starter used from one batch to another usually contains some wild yeast and bacteria. Sour beers are made by intentionally allowing wild yeast strains or bacteria into the brew, traditionally through the barrels or during the cooling. So it's like basically the environment's not as pristine and they just let anything go. So cool. I guess that's why what I'm drinking is like the fucking worst attempt at standardizing your beer. But it's actually not bad. It doesn't really taste very strawberry, but it's very like strong into the sour category. It's super sour. It's like it's very standardly sour. I don't know. That's as much as I can say. It's all right. Like it's all right. I just wasn't expecting a sour.
You know, I took this tequila tour of a tequila distillery in Mexico. I learned that they do tequila, and I mean, not the same way as beer, obviously, but it's the same idea in that of what you just said, in that when they are distilling the tequila, they do it in open. They get the mash of the agave and then turn it into this like weird beer stuff, which is then distilled. So it's fermented and then distilled, and they leave it open to the air. And the tequila, and they also plant a bunch of orange trees or lemon trees around the factory, so that it is instilled with the pollen of these trees. So it actually gives it that's a distinct flavor based on the terroir, as the French would say. Based on where it is, which is kind of like what you just said. Like you leave it open, and it's like whatever is floating around in the air comes into it. So anyway,
Yeah.
interesting
What are you
fact.
drinking?
I'm drinking a box of wine called Bandit. It's a Merlot. And it actually is 1 liter instead of 750 milliliters, which is kind of cool because it's the price of a standard bottle of wine, but it's 1 1/3 bottle of wine.
Yeah, it means you are allowed to drink more tonight than you usually would.
I can drink 33% more.
Yes.
Took me a while to do that math there.
Yeah, it's not 25% more. It's 33% more. You know, you're going from the 75 up to the
Now, how many
100.
milliliters more is that? I'm not doing that. I don't know. I think it's pretty good for a boxed wine. It tastes like a boxed wine that's decent, which is to say it is wholly unsurprising and typical and
Well, I feel like there's been this
standard.
resurgence of like alternative containers for wine, for actually classy wine, because it used to be that all the decent wine is going to be bottled with a nice cork, right? And now people have fancy twist offs. They have wine that comes in a can that's
Those are
like
great.
supposedly pretty nice. And then now even the boxed wine is getting a little bit fancier. I've got to say my favorite is the wine in the can, because you're not going to take a can of beer out and get properly drunk, right? When you're out at a park
Can of
drinking
wine
it.
out though.
Yeah, exactly. It's a perfect beverage to have. Like, it's a good amount of like, this is enough where it's like not enough for the whole night, but enough for like the first stage of this date. You know what I mean?
Especially a tall boy. I'll have a pint of wine, please. The funniest thing is Terminal 2 at Minneapolis Airport has Surdyk's. Surdyk's is a really well-known liquor store here. It only has one location, but it is like the liquor store to go to, and huge wine selection.
Mm-hmm.
But they have this airport branch in the smaller terminal you can go, and they sell wine right there. And they sell bottles, so that's nice. If you're going somewhere, you can take a bottle for a present, right? It's past security. They also sell cans right out in front where the sandwiches are that they make. And I'm like, yeah, who gets that? And
Oh,
it
that's
saves it.
Perfect.
Oh, it's great. You buy a can. They sell tall boys too. It's ridiculous.
Then you just get drunk on the flight. That's great.
So bad. I've done that once.
So here's the thing too, because so in international flights you get free booze.
Yeah.
For most, right? I don't know about United because they're garbage now, but I was flying back from Japan where I was over the holidays, and they would come by and they would say, hey, what do you want to drink? And they would have some beer and they would have some wine. And then they also had some sake. And I was like, hey, I'll get a little bit of that sake. And then they grabbed like a plastic cup and they poured this like minuscule amount into the bottom of it. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm trying to get properly fucked up. I have another like 12 hours to go here. I will be sober when I get off this plane. Like, give me some more. It was so disappointing. So if I could have forked over a little bit of money to have a can of wine, because just in principle I'm not going to pay for booze on an international flight, but if it's pre-flight and I'm grabbing it, like, hey, that's fair game.
Yeah, there you go.
I would have gone for that if I had that option, for sure.
And I think it's a federal crime to drink alcohol you purchased yourself on a flight, but who really gives a shit?
Who gives a shit? Is it really a federal
I
crime?
think it's yeah, you're really not supposed to do it. It's not because it obviously it's dangerous or anything, but I don't know.
But because
I guess
the
become
the airline's gonna lose some money, so we can't have that, can we?
You could get. I think you could get some dangerous situations if someone got too drunk on an airplane.
True. It's like, how did the plane crash? Was it a terrorist attack? Nah, someone brought some canned wine and they got so fucked up.
I've been lifting a lot more.
Yeah.
I look really good.
Good for you. Like six-pack? Full-on six-pack?
No, because I'm just eating a lot too. Because I'm doing really, really heavy weights. So heavy for me. The gym I'm going to, I mean, there are people benching. What would that be if you had 4 45s on each side? Yeah, it's a lot of weight.
Wait, you're not doing that, right?
I'm not.
How much are you doing?
I couldn't even lift that up. Are you kidding me?
No, how much are you
That's
doing
90,
though?
180. That's 306. That's 400 pounds.
Yeah, that's insane. Of course not.
I'm doing. I'm still trying to get eight reps. So I guess that's not low, but I used to go more than 8 reps. So I will do. I can do let's see, 90 plus 110, 120. So 120 plus the bar, so it's 165. This body weight.
How much on each side is that?
45 and 45, a 10, and a 5.
Weren't you doing 45 and 25 before?
No, that was squats.
Oh,
Okay.
you're talking. Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about squats. Sorry, I must not have been paying attention.
No, bench.
Benching that much.
Yeah,
Woo! That's impressive.
yeah.
That's a lot. Good for you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There are people who are benching 400 pounds
Jesus, that's so much.
at my gym. I mean, they're professional bodybuilders, but
Oh my God.
that's what I was. Well, that's the reaction I was looking for. No, not squatting, because that you could do that.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Benching.
Oh my God. Like, I'm just trying to imagine the body you would have to accomplish that. It's insane. What's also okay? So, how often are you going?
Almost every day.
Almost every day.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good for you. What changed? Like, what made you decide? Like, hey, I'm gonna commit more time to doing this.
I really enjoy lifting now. I really, really, really enjoy it. I really enjoy pushing myself. It's a fun environment. It's fun being around people who are just every single person in there is in better shape than you are. And I started doing a lot less cardio. I don't do a whole lot of cardio anymore, but it doesn't seem to have an impact really.
Really?
Because I think I'm trying to eat better, eat less. I'm doing that intermittent fasting thing.
Nice. Yes. Good.
So I don't eat breakfast anymore.
Is that because of me?
Yeah.
Yes. Good. And do you feel good about it?
I do think I eat less overall. I intake less calories, which is fine because which is good because I'm also doing less cardio, so it balances out nicely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm doing that, and I like, okay, I'd like to work on abs too, but it's hard to cut, and you can't lose fat and also lose a lot of fat and also gain a lot of muscle at the same time. It's kind of hard to do.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So
you really don't do a lot of cardio and feel like you're totally fine on that front?
I started doing more. I didn't do it for like 2 or 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed, like, you get on and it's like a lot harder, but it comes back pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
I've been starting to do more. I try to get like 100.
But what about in terms of like fat percentage and stuff like that? You don't feel like it has much of an impact,
I think I have less fat now
even though you're doing less cardio.
because I think I'm eating better. I'm eating better, and I've also I think I've cut out gluten because it has that other thing in it that's my stomach can't digest. It's not the gluten; it's like the fructin or fructose. So but that's great because everything I ate that had gluten in it was usually shit anyway. So
True. Nice. No, that's awesome though. I'm glad to hear all of that. I myself have been trying to figure out exactly what my workout schedule should be. So I don't know if I've mentioned on this podcast, I'm sure I have, but I started climbing in, I think it was like September or so last year. And it's hard for me to incorporate it into my schedule because I go to the gym generally, right? I do like 30 minutes of cardio and then I do like an hour or so of calisthenics, maybe a little bit longer. And so, I have all these moves I'm trying to practice and I'm really interested in doing that. So I'm like trying to get a front lever. I'm trying to get a planche. I've got strict muscle ups now. I don't know if you know what that is, but I just got that really recently. I'm super happy about it. Strict muscle up means like a bar muscle up. You know what a muscle up is,
yes.
Right? It's when you pull up and then you go through that to a full dip. I can do that now without any kip, so my legs stay straight. So I'm really happy. Like it's like I'm seeing tangible gains here, and I'm really into all this calisthenic workout stuff. But I've also started getting more into climbing recently, and I'm trying to figure out like, okay, so how much of my time do I focus on climbing, bouldering specifically, no top rope, versus doing calisthenics training. And it's like 40 minutes ish for me, 35 to 40 minutes to commute to the climbing gym and back.
That's a lot.
Which is long. Whereas the calisthenics gym is like on my way home from work. So it's not like I can just like only go to the climbing gym and then do a little bit of calisthenics there. It's not like I really want to do that. And I still don't want to sacrifice on the climbing. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, do I do 3-day cycles? Like rest one day, calisthenics one day, and then climbing, and then repeat? But that doesn't feel like enough in a week, right? Do I do 2 days calisthenics and then 1 day climbing? Do I just switch it up. I'm still trying to figure that out, and I'm not sure exactly what to do. Like, I was hoping I could do like calisthenics climb, calisthenics climb, calisthenics climb, one rest day, but I think that that's too extreme.
Well, it depends on how intense you go each day. Because you can, well, for me at least, I can, one day I'll go really, really heavy on the weights, but then the next day I will focus a lot on form. I'll really, really focus on form with a lot lighter weights and make sure, and lower rests. And just, so it's like, it's different.
But do you have any rest days or no?
Not really. No.
No. You feel like that's still fine.
My rest day is like light cardio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'll go to like, I literally will pop in and do 20 minutes of cardio and leave. And it's like, that'll be my rest day.
Okay. So my roommate invited me to join a ping pong team, which is every Monday. So that's what I'm hoping is going to be my rest day, is like playing ping pong.
That's
which is even less than light cardio.
I want to say one thing. It would be fun. Okay. I have this idea that I want to get to a point where I can hit the Marine. The Marines have a standard for your workout. And I want to get to the point where I can hit 100 or a full score. A complete. That is my goal. That's like my discrete goal. So my goal is to hit the maximum score you can get for the Marine fitness test. And I think it changes a lot. But I'm just looking here. So maximum pull-ups with perfect form. My age bracket would be 23 pull-ups in a row, perfect form. Can you do that?
Easy, yeah. I'm sure. I've never tried it, but I'm sure it's not like easy.
I can't do 23 in a row. I don't think I couldn't do 23.
We're talking all the way up, chin over, and then all the way down, fully extend, right?
Yep.
You know
Slowly.
what? Before the next episode, I'm gonna try it and see how many I can do. Remind me, but I will come back to you with some feedback on whether or not that's easy.
84 push-ups, perfect form.
That seems harder. Yeah. I think maybe I could do 50. I don't know.
115 crunches all the way up. It's like more like sit-ups.
Okay.
Again, perfect form. That's gonna hurt my back.
Yeah. I don't know why they would do crunches. That seems like a terrible, outdated exercise to be basing your fitness goals on. But continue.
And then 3 miles in 18 minutes.
I don't like this fitness test. I think it's dumb. It's not practical. It's like if you're a Marine going out into combat, that doesn't seem like a
that's your
practical assessment.
I'm not saying it's practical, but I am saying it's like if you were able to do all of this, you were in very good shape. It's a 6-minute mile, 3 6-minute miles.
This reminds me of this conversation I had with my dad a few years ago. And Scott, as you know, my dad used to be Special Forces, and he was talking about how in the Army, and it seems like this is a similar thing that's happening in the Navy. They used to have training that was one, much more costly, but two, much more practical, right? And so these physical fitness exams used to be stuff like you would have the wires, and you would have to crawl through the mud and like do this like bear crawl thing or whatever it's called. And then in order to make it more cost effective, they downgraded it to these simple like push-ups, pull-ups, things like that.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if it's something similar with the Marines as well. It's like, we don't have the funding. Like, let's just make this easier.
Could be. But I'm not saying whatever it is for the military. I think it's a good. I can't 3 6-minute miles. That's tough for me.
That is by far the hardest.
That's the hardest
part
one.
of the challenge.
Yeah.
And also the thing that's very kind of different from what you're currently working on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I could probably get to the other ones.
So what I want to do, and maybe I can convince you to do this, is try one of those Ninja Warrior challenges with the obstacle courses in the water at the bottom.
I don't know what that is, but it sounds like I need agility for that, and I don't have that.
Look up American Ninja Warrior. It's a total it's totally stealing from this Japanese show, but it's like you have to run through this obstacle course.
Oh, I've
And
seen that.
Yeah, and apparently there are these gyms that have these exercises, these different pieces of equipment, and you can, like, I don't know how much you have to pay to go to one of those, but I think it would be a really fun activity to just
I'd
try
do
to
that.
work out at one of those places.
Oh, it'd be embarrassing, but I would do it.
Oh, it would be fun, right? We should definitely do that.
Yeah, it'd be fun for you because you would look really good compared to me.
My workouts may be a little bit more conducive to this kind of
I think
activity
so.
than yours.
I think so.
But
I
yours
bet
is much more conducive to standing out at a beach.
I do
So-
compound exercise. I mean, a bench is a compound exercise, and squats are compound exercises.
I think
and
you would do all right, honestly.
those are my.
You would do better than most.
I do a lot of pull-ups. I'm working on my pull-ups.
Oh, good. You should try some muscle ups.
I might get there.
I showed my brother how to do muscle ups, and he got it in a day, and it was really demoralizing. It was ridiculous. It took me like 2 weeks to get it, and then I was showing my brother one day. He had it.
How much do you weigh?
Right now I weigh between 145 and 150, depending.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten to a little bit better weight. I would say like 6 months ago I was still like 150 to 155, but I've been keeping it at a better level.
Yeah.
Goal is to get to like between 140 and 145, but we'll see when that happens, if that happens.
I think this is the latest we've started the topic in a podcast. So car, I just bought a new car. And a car has 4 wheels and a steering wheel.
Jesus, are you seriously starting with this? All right,
You
continue.
said basics of cars. And it has an engine, typically in the front. But you can also have a middle engine car and a rear engine car.
Wait, really? That's a thing?
Yeah, sports cars have middle engines and rear engines.
Wait, really?
More
Why
often.
is that?
Balance.
I don't understand.
I don't either. They just do. Just take it
Okay.
as a fact.
Okay, sure.
There are rear-engine sports cars and mid-engine sports cars as well. Mid-engine makes sense. But rear-engine also makes sense because sports cars are also rear-wheel drive typically. So if you have more weight in the back where the driving wheels are,
Does that make it worse for control?
I don't know. It does something to it. It makes it better for racing to have a rear-wheel drive car. I don't know why. It just is. You could Google it, and Google would tell you. But almost all sports
All
cars
right,
are
I'm
rear
looking
wheel.
this shit up.
They're rear-wheel drive.
Advantages of rear wheel drive: enhanced acceleration, an RWD rear wheel drive. Car's acceleration is better. Better handling. Each set of tires in rear wheel drive cars have only one task to perform. The front set controls the steering, while
that
the
makes
rear
sense.
set provides power. Oh yeah, okay. So you turn, the front 2 wheels turn, but then the back wheels are focused on like accelerating you forward. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's valid. Cool.
So that's the basic of car. That's all you need to know about a car. I grew up listening. I don't want to say this because I just love this podcast, or
Yeah.
not. It's not a podcast,
Radio show.
radio show. It's Car Talk.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of this? Have I told you about this?
You've told me about it, but I've never listened to it.
Okay. So it's these two guys. One has a degree from MIT. It's a PhD from MIT. The other one has some degree from some other. I think he also went to MIT, but doesn't have a PhD. And they are auto mechanics. And they have a podcast. Actually, they don't do this anymore because one's dead. They were pretty old. But they actually had their own garage in Massachusetts, in Boston, and they'd actually fix these cars, and then go on a radio show and take people's car questions or relationship questions that had to do with cars, or things to do with airplanes or cattle trailers or whatever. And they're really funny. They're literally like slapstick humor, like Two Stooges. But they're extremely intelligent, and it's fascinating to listen to it because actually surgeons and doctors will take their show and make their class listen to it, because the way they diagnose car problems is the same way doctors diagnose patient problems. They come up with a full list of options that it could be, and then as they get more information from the caller, they narrow it down onto what they think it is.
Oh, so they do this diagnosis on the spot over the radio?
On the spot over the radio in
That's
like
pretty cool.
6-minute segments. they're really extremely intelligent people. And they also have other things, like they have like these quizzes and puzzler things and logic problems that they like give out that are usually automotive in nature. But I know I grew up listening to this, so I have this understanding of how cars work a little more than I think a lot of people, because you kind of, as humorous as it is, you glean this information. So I've always seen, but I think it also means I also see cars, unlike a lot of people, they see them as like this mystical thing and they don't know how it works, and like you give it a name. For me, a car is a means of conveyance. It's an engine, and it's a lot of interesting technical components, but it's a machine to get around. And so I bought this new car, and it is so fun to have it because it's such an asset to my life. It is like a tool, and it is the best and most productive tool ever. For today, I didn't have liquor today. I didn't have my wine, so I could drive out half an hour before we talked, and then I could drive to the liquor store, pick it up, come back. It's great. So I have this, that's kind of my history with cars and what a car is and what front-wheel drive is and rear-wheel drive is. But I think the most interesting thing to do with cars is just the place they hold in the American psyche. Because you go to another country, it's not a given to have a car. Most people don't have cars. This country, America, has this infatuation with cars and this culture built around cars and this obsession with cars, not only as machines but also like as mystical, magical things.
Well, it's a status symbol in a lot of ways, right? You know, there's that obvious trope of people when they get really successful and rich, they want to get really, really fancy cars. They want to get all their Ferraris and their Porsches and all their fancy sports cars, and then they ride them on the track, but they're practically useless for getting you from point A to point
right.
B. There's definitely that status symbol notion of it. But I do agree with you. I think that cars in the U.S. Hold a different place than in a lot of other countries in the world. And I think that part of that has to do just with the geography of the United States. In a lot of places in Europe, you have this vast history of cities developing over time with forms of transportation before automobiles. So it was often just people walking, and then you build cities around that, and you have people riding horses and people having carriages pulled by horses, and you have cities built around that. And so you have narrower streets, and you have cities that are ultimately not designed to be auto-oriented. Whereas in the U.S., I mean, sure, you had a lot of that, but you also have this massive, vast geography where you can sprawl out with the advent of automobiles, and you almost have to sprawl out in order to connect disparate parts of the country together because it's such a large country, right? And then you have, since the 60s, you have a deliberate effort by the government to build out a national highway system to be, for strategic military purposes. And then you have auto-oriented suburb expansion, and you have the trucking industry as well. So like all of that kind of built out this auto-oriented culture in which cars are seen as the centerpiece for transportation as well as identity, right?
Well, I think there's a whole other element as well I want to bring up, that unlike Europe or South America or Southeast Asia, we have these vast tracts of wilderness within our own country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Theodore Roosevelt, the president, probably did, even though cars weren't even a thing when he was the president, did more to advance the idea of the necessity of a car than any other president, because it's this idea that you can escape, you can like go out and get away and like be out in nature and take these trips through your country. And even the most fascinating statistic is most Americans could use an electric car, and they could accomplish 100% of their tasks with this. But they have this mentality that's like, but what if I just need to drive to Alaska? What if I just need to do that?
And I think part of this comes down to, that quote unquote rugged individualism as well.
Right.
That's also very uniquely American, where in a place like France or a place like England,
nowhere to go.
you don't have, you don't have anywhere to go, so you're geographically constrained. But also, two, I don't think there's the same notion of kind of individualistic exploration that you have in the US. And the automobile as a tool and as a technology is something that really caters toward promoting that kind of vision of oneself. It's like, hey, I'm an individual who can take matters into his own hands, who doesn't need anybody else, doesn't need the government, doesn't need the system. I can just go off and do whatever I want, me and my pickup truck, right? Like
Right.
that mentality is really like pervasively American, I think.
And also the idea of wilderness and
Yes.
parks is very uniquely American.
Which is like easy to forget as an American,
Very
right,
easy.
who has
Like,
access to it. But
If you are in Vietnam, for example, or Brazil, I think a lot of people would think. Now, I've never been there, and I don't know any Brazilians. I do know some Vietnamese, though. The idea of wilderness and going out and wanting to be in the wilderness and getting away. That doesn't exist. Like, it's uncivilized. There's no air. This is probably a little stereotypical, but there's no infrastructure. Like, why would I want to do that? Like, why is that aspirational for me?
you can't say there's no air conditioning, because in Vietnam there already is no air conditioning.
There already is no air conditioning. But it's like, why is it aspirational? And it wouldn't be. It's not aspirational. And then you talk about Europe, and the wilderness in Europe is not wilderness by our definition. I mean, there's people living in their wilderness or parks, right? And here we talk about wilderness, and even though people never do it, they have this idea that they may want to. They may want to get out into it, and they have that option available to them. And in order to take advantage of the option, they need the car. So if like macro and micro, because also within our cities, as Steve mentioned, they're built around cars. It's hard to get around them without one.
It is. Whereas, and obviously there are exceptions, right? Like, you're not going to go driving around Manhattan 9 out of 10 times because there's a robust transportation system. But you've got to be kidding yourself if you think that the majority of America is like that, right? There just isn't a robust public transportation system, and that's because we ended up choosing the route of building out the kind of geography and the kinds of neighborhoods and environments that work well with cars rather than the kind that work well with public transportation. Or rather, maybe a more accurate way of saying it is the kind that transitions appropriately. Because if you think about a lot of European cities, they're small and they have winding streets and they have narrow corridors, and in a circumstance like that, you can like build a light rail on top, or you can build a subway underneath. But like, we don't have the given constraints of the historical cities that were built in Europe, and therefore, when we were massively expanding, we had the opportunity to cater it around the most dominant transportation system at the time, which was automobiles.
And I think a lot of people probably may not realize this, and Steve and I do because we're both geography majors and took classes on this, but a lot of our cities are so auto-oriented because the federal government blew up entire neighborhoods to build highways through them, so you could drive to downtown on a freeway,
and also actively lobbied against streetcar companies to put them out of business in favor of motorized vehicles.
I think the best part of owning a car is road tripping. Steve, what is your favorite road trip you've been on? The one with your parents from Minneapolis to DC. That's it, right? Favorite one?
through an ugly part of the country. So that was like by far like near the bottom of the list. Not because of my parents, but because of the fact that we had two old ass Subarus from the early 2000s driving, one of them with a U-Haul trailer latched to the back of it. And then my poor parents helping me drag all of my shit from Minneapolis all the way to DC. Man, that was a brutal trip. I'm surprised we got through that and didn't lose the trailer. Honestly, it was an insane idea. I should have just gotten rid of all that shit.
How
it
long
was
of a
not
drive
worth
was
it.
that? It was like a 2-day drive.
Jeez, I think we took 3 days.
3 days
to do
Yeah.
it. Yeah, just
Yeah.
because we didn't want to drive for super long times,
Oh,
and
no.
and because so we were using my 2001 Subaru Legacy and then my brother's 2005 Subaru Forester, and his Forester didn't. We put the U-Haul trailer, latched it onto the Forester, and the Forester didn't have AC. And so my dad
The
had to
Forester
drive.
didn't have AC.
Yeah, my dad had to drive without AC
It's the middle of
behind
summer.
there. Oh, it was brutal.
Oh,
At certain points, I would switch with him, and I'd be like, "God, I don't want to do this at all."
so you have to have your windows down on the interstate.
Oh, God.
You know, deaf by the end of it.
I will say, I mean that was a memorable experience to say the least. I haven't been on that many road trips. I mean, when I was really young, I remember when my family was moving from Pennsylvania to Hawaii. We actually did a cross-country road trip all the way to California, and then we took a plane from there, like carrying a bunch of shit. So I remember that being pretty intense and interesting, and like going through Arizona and being really bored by it and really hot. And then I've always enjoyed our trips, Scott. What was the one with all the winding roads that you almost killed me on?
That was one in Colorado.
Yeah.
Independence Pass.
Independence Pass. That was fucking terrifying. So the
Oh,
problem with Scott and his driving is that Scott doesn't, or he now he does, but he didn't used to get to drive a lot, but he really likes to drive. And he doesn't like to drive in the sense of he likes the ability to get from point A to point B, or he likes to have a methodical approach. He likes the acceleration and the fear of it. And so we were going down this pass called Independence Pass, and there were basically no roadblocks on the sides. And he would just like swerve down these roads, and he would just be having a great time, and I'd be there in the passenger
So
seat
much
like,
fun.
please don't fucking kill me. Because the way there, I was very careful, right? I was like carefully going up the hill. Then the way back, he was just like zooming past, and I was scared for my
So
life.
up the hill's a lot safer too than down the hill.
Yeah, and I really thought that might be the end of my life. That's how scared I was.
Oh, I remember you weren't happy. Oh, I was having so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, like, legitimately, it's terrifying.
I just, for me, I understand. I understand. That was the pickup truck, right? I understood. Okay, it's a machine. It's an American. It's not going to fail as long as I hit the brake, and at the right time, we're going to be fine. Because when you hit the brake, the hydraulics turn on, the brakes turn on. Like, it's not going to just lose braking for no reason, right? It's not just going to fail.
You see, I think it never hurts to have a little bit of an additional buffer just in case either you or the machine messes up. And if the risk is that you might actually tumble to your death, all the more reason for it.
I would love if I had to choose a way to die, it would be that. I mean,
But the thing
that
is,
would be a bad.
I wouldn't have gotten
Great
to
story.
chosen because it would be because of your dumbass's decision that I die. Like, that's not cool. Come on. Anyway, what's your favorite road trip?
Well, I did a long road trip back when I was really little. I don't remember a lot of it. I think taking young kids on road trips is cruel and unusual. They don't get the point of it.
No, they don't have a good time.
They don't like the scenery. They don't like they can't drive, which is half the fun.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't drink. Like, there's
Yeah.
no point for a little kid to do this. And they're in the back seat getting nauseous. That was me. We took a road trip through like Indiana, Idaho, all the way down to Four Corners from Washington State, which is where Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah all meet at one point. My memory from that is the Mormons, because we went through Salt Lake City. So that's like that's the piece that's seared in my memory, because it's so weird. That's the one thing that it's so, not the rocks, not the cool parks. It's like the Mormons. The Mormons, I remember.
I've been to Salt Lake City, and I remember floating on that lake.
Great Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I don't
yeah, I remember
remember
that.
the Mormons. Mm.
Oh, they tried to convert us. That's why. I mean, they came up and told us how great it is. But my favorite road trip was The one I did to Death Valley, where I drove from Las Vegas to
Oh, by yourself.
by myself to Death Valley. Oh, it was, I mean, off-road almost the whole time in an SUV over dirt roads up in these mountain passes and down to the desert. It was so stunningly beautiful. And you could go as fast as I would. And then you get on the paved roads, which there are like 3 in the park. But because the park is so big, I mean, we're talking the size of a state. The park is the size of a state. You can just, in the roads, just go in a straight line for 30 miles. You can go 110 just in the middle of the road.
That's insane.
Because there's no one there. You can't see any cars for 30 miles.
You see, I've never done that, so I would love to try that.
Oh,
That
my
sounds
God.
like a lot of fun,
It is
actually.
so much fun.
Yeah.
And just the freedom of being able to do that and just go wherever you want. Oh, that was spectacular. So I'm going to try to recreate that this February when I go.
You see, there is really something kind of freeing about having a car and being able to drive out like that. I don't think you can discount that, you know?
No.
I mean, I don't have a car right now, and it's not like I actively miss driving. I've never been like a big driver, but I do sometimes wonder, like, hey, am I really missing out? Am I possibly missing out for not having a car and having that luxury and that freedom?
Right.
I don't know.
You're at a point where you could buy one if you
I could, but I
Wanna
want
get
my
one.
next car to be a Tesla.
you could afford a Tesla, Steve. It's not that expensive.
I probably could. It probably just won't be worth it at this point.
You'll look like such a
Stereotype?
yeah.
I know,
I
right?
was going to use a worse word, but sure, yeah. Stereotypes. Let's go with that.
Asian software engineer with this haircut driving that Tesla. Yeah, that's too much of a stereotype. I'm sorry, I can't do it.
You need like a Jeep.
I need a Hummer.
You need a Hummer in DC. Practical.
Oh yeah, real practical. I'm gonna get so many.
You look really. If you, I think the Tesla is probably a better choice. You look very gay in a Jeep.
Do you want to talk Teslas, or should we start with other brands?
Yeah, we can start with other brands that have combustion engines.
Yeah. The ones that are actual cars and not Tesla, which is a computer on wheels and not a real vehicle.
No.
So, here's the thing, right? I feel like it's within our cultural standards, cultural norms, to know all the different car companies and see a car go by, like you know what that car is.
Mhm.
I don't have any of that. Like, I look at a car and I don't even know what that symbol identifies, like what the company is for that car. Like, I'll see a car go by and I like nothing, just blank,
Mhm.
no idea what that car is. The only one is like a Camry, and I don't even remember what company makes that car.
Camry, Toyota.
Toyota Camry, great. And then I'm sure I'm getting it wrong too. Like, there are other cars that look exactly fucking like that, and I know that people say like, oh yeah, you just look at the little like symbol that they have at the front and the back of the car. It's like, I don't know what that symbol means. Like, I don't know what vehicle that is. So I know nothing about different car manufacturers and different like types of cars. So I need you to give me a quick rundown, like the layman's rundown.
I'll give you a rundown. Hang on, I'm actually doing some math really quick because I'm interested in this. So I'm just curious. So the percentage of electric vehicles sold worldwide, including which Tesla's the biggest, but is, do you know what percentage it is? I'm just curious. Guess.
I'm gonna say 3%.
3%?
3%.
No, 0.005. Yes.
0.005.
Yes.
Wow. That is so much less than I thought.
So
Holy
there
shit.
are in the world every year 81 million cars sold. New cars sold. 81 million.
81 million. Mhm.
There are 400,000 electric cars.
Okay.
So I'm just to put it in perspective.
So if I do get a Tesla, it's not that stereotypical.
they're more. I'm sure they're much more common in the U.S. Right? I mean, that's global sales. So
Yeah.
we're talking about places like everywhere other than the developed world, right?
Yeah.
So electric cars, which we're talking about in a second, which Tesla is the biggest one, is 0.004%, 5% or whatever it was I said of car sales globally. So it's a minuscule amount. growing, but not exponentially. Then you have all the 99.996% of cars that are sold are combustion engines.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the U.S., you have three main options. You have three options.
Okay.
You have exotic, which is typically Italian, or maybe a French car, a Renault, or a Peugeot if you're really weird. Ferrari is a French car, is an Italian car. Ferrari, Maserati, another French car. Big names. So Lamborghini, big one, Lamborghini. Your second option is American, and you have GM, which has tons of sub brands, which I don't even know, but they're common, like Jeep and whatever. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Chrysler is actually the one, but that is now bought by Fiat, which is an Italian car company, which is the biggest car company in the world now that it bought.
So
Fiat.
is that still considered American?
It's an American badge, yeah, and Chrysler still makes a bunch of sub car, like a bunch of, they have a bunch of brands in their suite. And then you have Ford, which is kind of the grandfather of them, although GM is by far the biggest. You have and you have Ford as well. Ford's kind of probably the most quintessential American car right now that you could get, because it's.
Yep. Haven't they been making a resurgence? Haven't they been getting better?
It has. They have been getting. I mean, American cars used to have a really bad reputation of just like really behind the times, awful gas mileage, poor styling, poor craftsmanship, poor. They broke down all the time. They just were not good cars. And I think people buy them, one, because they're cheaper. Can be cheaper. They're the only ones to make pickup trucks, which Americans love.
I mean, that's the big like selling point of GM and Ford, right? Is the pickup trucks.
Well, they're extremely lucrative. I mean, these trucks go for $50,000-$60,000. I mean, these are expensive. They're more than a Tesla.
There aren't really any foreign pickup trucks. Like
there really aren't. Toyota makes a pickup, but if you're driving a Toyota pickup, you're a little weird. And then you have the foreign brands. And you have the foreign brands. There's two types of foreign brands. You have the good foreign brands, which have a strong brand reputation, and you have upcoming foreign brands, which are building a stronger reputation. So I bought one of those, a Kia, which Kia and Hyundai are the ones that are kind of up and coming. They used to be really bad. Not so much. They're actually quite good now because they're competing.
Are those both Korean?
Both Korean. And then you have Honda and Toyota. And those, Toyota is massive. It's I think the number one car in the U.S., followed by Honda.
Is it really?
Yeah.
It's the number one car in the U.S.?
I bet it's. I'm just guessing, but it's up there. It's not one, but in the very high. So
talk about shitting on American national pride.
Honda has a reputation for really high build quality, really better styling, and Toyota has a reputation for just you can drive those things forever. They don't break. They never ever ever break.
So what are your thoughts on Subaru? The last car I had was a Subaru. My brother's car is a Subaru.
Right.
My family's been a Subaru family. Like, we've always gotten Subarus.
Subarus are a really interesting car. As you know, they're probably, they were originally marketed to lesbians.
In the States, yeah.
Yeah, in the States. Subaru is unique in the car that the engine, I'm not going to describe this perfectly because I'm not entirely sure, but the engine is actually created in a different way than other car engines are. It's harder to do maintenance on them.
So here's what I heard about a Subaru engine, and it might be totally off.
Yeah.
But in World War II, the company was creating engines for airplanes, and then they just kind of like retrofitted those. And after the war, they started producing those within the Subaru brand for cars.
Right.
Is that right?
I don't know, but it's probably they have a unique feature to them in some way that makes them very different than other cars, and actually more expensive to do maintenance on because the parts are just less common and it's just more cantankerous to fix them. But Subarus are extremely reliable and safe. So Subarus have a safety reputation, and they're absolutely one of the safest cars you can drive. And the company has built that's niche is outdoorsy and safe. are its like its niche. That those are its audiences. Those are its value propositions. In other words, so that's and Subaru doesn't sell a whole lot in the U.S. Mostly in urban areas. There's billions of Subarus in the Twin Cities. I mean, they're all over the place, but you go other places you don't see them. So it's a very niche, like urban market. It's a cool car. If you have a Subaru, it's cool. I don't know. They don't look any different, but it's like cool to have a Subaru. I don't
Yeah,
really
I mean,
know why.
I had a Legacy, and honestly, like the hatchback Legacy, they look ugly. Honestly,
They're kind of ugly. And actually,
yeah, the hatchback
yeah.
was very
It's
awkward.
very- the new ones, the 2020s they look a lot better. But you could fit your Legacy inside a new Subaru Legacy. Like they're so big.
Here's the thing that's really frustrating. It's like
Massive.
every year they seem to get bigger. Like my brother's Forester is from 2005, and I saw like a 2016 Forester, and it doesn't look like the same kind of vehicle. I don't know what's going on, but it's like the Subaru Outback. I remember that I had my Legacy, and the Outback, back when the Outback first started, is basically just another Legacy, right? One of my roommates back in like 2015 had an Outback, and I had my Legacy, and they look like totally different vehicles. His looked like a fucking minivan, and well, I wonder if what they're doing is they just keep on like improving the efficiency of the engine, and they're instead of saying like, oh, the engine got more efficient, like that's great for gas mileage, they're like, well, how much more car can we tack onto this engine now? And so then the car just keeps getting bigger as the engine gets more efficient. And then they're like, fuck, this car's too big. We need a new model. And they make another smaller model.
Well, I think part of it is to do with Americans. Well, I think consumers in general. As technology improves, cars get better and better and better. And, people, okay, it's like, well, we could keep using better and better engines and keep the car the same weight, and the gas mileage would improve. Or we could add really nice features to it.
That XL cup holder.
Or sound and the softness of the ride are really big. You could put sound dampening stuff. You could make it sound like a coffin inside of it. You could have amazing, upholstery that weighs a shit ton. Really nice chairs. I mean, you could add so much stuff to it. And I think that's where the market's going. As it gets more and more, that's why gas mileage hasn't increased very much, but the quality has. Like, you get these cars, like a nice, fully tricked out Subaru with all the bells and whistles. You know, it's like front and back seat warmers and screens for everyone. And I mean, it's so quiet on the road, you can't even tell you're driving. I mean, that's what and then you have to add more size to the car, right? For all this shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting
I don't
trend.
know. I don't like it. And I also don't like the trend of more cars being higher up above the ground. I like low ride cars. They feel like you have more control.
Yeah,
you feel
that's
like
true.
you have much more control for a vehicle when it's close to the ground. And I hate that so many cars, even sedans now, are going like, let's be a little bit higher off the ground. And I don't know why it's happening. Makes me
Steve,
feel uncomfortable.
I want to know, what's your favorite? What if you had a dream car? I already know your answer, but what would it be and why?
Probably a Tesla model. I'm gonna keep this within like a realistic model instead, like something that I could actually buy and might actually buy in the future. I would say a Tesla Model Y would be my
what that
go-to
looks like.
car. So you should look it up.
I'm
So
looking it up.
the Model X is the one that got all of the major publicity, right? Because it was the first one that was within like a reasonable price range. It wasn't like the previous super expensive ones. And it was a sedan, and it had a good style and look, and it had all the software, the autopilot and stuff like that. Then
Steve, pick another one. This one's ugly.
No. Just wait. Hear me out. Hear me out on
It's
why.
not an
Hear me out on why, right? Then they came out with the Model Y, and the Model Y got almost no fanfare. But here's the thing about the Model Y that's cool, right? So Tesla has another vehicle. I don't remember what it's called, but it was like hatchback or like an SUV or something like that. And it's the one with the fancy doors that open upwards. I don't remember what that one was called, right? But that car is like a little bit too big and bulky, right? And the Model X is annoying because it's a sedan. But the Model Y is like a subtle sedan-like hatchback. So it has more space in the back, but it's still like sleek enough that it can pass for like being cool.
Right? I don't know. I think it's not very attractive, but
the Model Y? Wait, let me just pull this shit up.
Like,
let me just make sure. Are you sure you're looking at the right
its
thing?
nose is stubby, and it has no butt.
I know you're all about the butt.
It just is out. It's disproportional.
No, this is like the optimal kind of middle ground between style and function, right? It's still relatively stylistic, but it's not a sedan, which is completely non-functional, right? Like you still have the space in the back. You can still go on the road trips if you need to. So overall, I think this is a really good vehicle.
I think the Model S is a lot prettier.
Well, yeah, but the Model S is super expensive, and there's no way I'm ever going to be able to afford that.
Well, just imagine if you could. This is aspirational. If you wanted to get a Tesla, would it be the Model S? If you had no price wasn't an issue. That's a nice looking car.
It's a super sexy car. I mean, Elon Musk says it's like the most fun vehicle that he's ever ridden in. It's apparently just like really good on acceleration and things like that. So I mean, like, yeah, if money was no object, I would get the Model S. But if I were factoring in money, then I do think the Model Y would probably be. I mean, like, if I was actively looking for a Tesla right now, then I would be looking at the Model Y, not the Model X. And so I do want to say a couple things about electric vehicles in general and Teslas in particular that I think are super interesting. And you're just gonna have to bear with me while I go into this. I realize it's like this tiny fraction of the market, but still, I think that it's revolutionary for a few reasons, right? Like, the first thing that I think is really interesting is that somehow there have been all these ancillary benefits of creating an electric vehicle that weren't kind of factored in initially when they were first building this. One of them is that when you have an electric car, you don't have as many moving parts, right? Like I said before, it's a computer on wheels. And so because there aren't so many parts, it's really easy to make a safer car.
Right.
So one of the amazing things about Teslas, like the top 3 safest vehicles are all Teslas. That's insane, right? Like, it's just, there's nothing in the front of the car. Like, it's just empty space. Like, you open up the front of a Tesla and it's like more cargo space, right? Because they don't need to put a bunch of moving parts there. So there are so few pieces that it's really difficult. I mean, like, it's really easy to ensure a greater level of safety for people. So I think that's super cool. The other thing is, like, the way that an electric engine works versus a combustion engine. It's just way easier to get incredible acceleration. So there are YouTube videos out there of like a Tesla racing a Lambo, and then based on the accelerating start, if it's a short enough distance, the Tesla just smokes the Lambo every time.
Yeah, they have instant torque. That's the difference with an electric motor.
I don't know the specifics. Tell me about it. How
you have immediate torque. So imagine for people who don't know what torque is, imagine a tiny little fan that is plastic. It's like a kid's toy, right? And like you can fan yourself with it, and you turn it on, it spins really fast. But you could stick your finger in there and stop it immediately, right? Now imagine a fan, same speed, it's been the same speed, but you stick your finger in and it chops your finger off. That's torque. Torque is it's not the speed, but it's the power behind it, right?
Okay.
So what happens with electric vehicles is you have instantaneous torque. As soon as you hit the throttle, all the power goes to the wheels. There's no spooling up time. It doesn't take any time for that power to actually reach the wheels that it does in a combustion engine, right? So you have extremely good acceleration. That's just the nature of electric.
Yep.
They are far less powerful, however, over time. So if you had a drag race over a mile, a Tesla would probably win. A Tesla would win hands down every time. An electric car would win hands down. It doesn't matter if it's a Tesla or not. It's just electric.
Yep.
But if you had a race over 20 miles, the combustion engine would win, as it stands right now, because they are just a stronger engine. that you can fit into a car.
Yeah,
They-
that makes sense.
Right.
That definitely makes sense. But I think the last piece, and it's just the unintended consequences of an electric vehicle, right? Is that with a company like Tesla, because of the nature of how the vehicle is created, and because it's so primarily dominant on utilizing software rather than hardware, is you now have over-the-air updates. So this doesn't sound. I mean, this sounds like an interesting quirk, right? And it is that, right? It is an interesting quirk, and that's a reason to buy it. But it also means that for the first time, you have a vehicle that's not a depreciating asset. It's a vehicle that is an asset that improves in value over time because the software improves over time.
I don't know if that's true. I doubt they appreciate because you have all the mechanical components. Depreciation is a mentality as well. It's not just software or hardware. It's also the fact that it's new or not. It's just a mentality aspect.
Maybe it's not fair for me to say that it's going to directly appreciate, but I do think that it's hard to dispute the fact that the functionality does improve over time in a way that's radically different from any kind of combustion engine vehicle.
I am looking at the depreciation rate for a Tesla is about 50% that of a conventional vehicle, but it still does depreciate.
Okay. Well, that's because they continue to build more Teslas.
That's
and
not
because,
no. It's not based depreciation of assets like that are not based on supply. It's based on this idea of something being new or not new. It's artificial.
Well, in a way, isn't that based on supply? If you think that there's going to be a new generation in the next year, then that's a supply based.
Well, if you think there's going to be, I mean, sure, but it also has to be desirable to begin with, right? Which, it could be. So it could be a collector's item, right?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit semantics either way.
It's
I
semantics.
think we're saying the same thing.
It's semantics.
But I do think there is a value there where it's like, it's not like every year your Tesla's getting worse. It's like your Tesla, you buy it at a certain level, and then because of the software app updates, it actually improves in terms of the features that you have.
But eventually the software will outpace the actual hardware that's in the car and the capability of the hardware.
Correct. So there is a
computer.
negotiation about like how long that will take and how long it will retain value and all of that.
Right. So my dream car, of course, it's gasoline powered.
Of course it is.
Aston Martin DB9. Look it up. James Bond car. Oh,
Aston Martin. Yeah, that's the only place I've ever heard that is in James Bond.
It is
Aston
such a
Martin. What's
beautiful
it called?
DB9.
DB9.
Not the convertible, the hardtop. Just look at that car. Oh.
Really? It's got like nose slits.
Oh, it is beautiful. That is such a beautiful car.
Let me explain what I'm seeing. So, what I'm seeing is a silver 2-seater car that has lights like these 2 back-seated lights and like 1 front-seated light in this weird light capsule. It's got like a weird grill thing at the front, and it's got these 2 nostril slits at the top. Like, it's got an aggressive front to it, is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot going on. It's definitely like a sleek, sexy look, but then the front is like screaming at you like, hey, I'm a guy trapped in the 70s who used to be a special agent and was really raping towards women.
So attractive.
Like, that's what it screams.
Oh, it is so attractive. I think it's just it was a beautiful car. So the other car brand I really like is Alfa Romeo, which is
I don't know either of these car brands.
So
Alfa Romeo.
Do
you have a specific model?
The design has gotten worse over time, so I would say like a 2010 or something. And like one of their they make kind of everyday cars, but one of their sporty cars, I just think they look really cool. Like the
Oh, they've got like a weird front as
I
well.
like
it's
the
like
grill.
a very unique one.
I think they're kind of fun and quirky. They're
It's definitely
Italian.
quirky.
It's an Italian car, I think. But I think I love the Aston Martin. I would also, if I had a shit ton of money, I'd get a Ferrari. But who wouldn't?
Yeah, the thing for me is like those. I've never been a car guy. I've been a technology guy, which is why the Tesla interests me. But I've never been really into any of those other vehicles.
See, that's why I don't like the Tesla. I like the mechanical aspects. Like, it's a piece of it's a piece of physical engineering, and that's like you can turn materials into this thing that can take corners at 80 miles an hour and can hit 180 miles per hour in 3 seconds or 5 seconds. I mean, that's just like mind blowing. How do you do that? And that's just really, I love the and no computers involved, just the mechanics, like mechanical engineering. I think that's so cool. It is. I mean, now it's informed by science, and it's informed by technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the actual outcome it's a physical thing that's doing the work,
True.
which I think is really cool. Powered by dinosaurs. I just think it's cool. It's neat. I just think it's neat.
I wish I knew more about how combustion engines work and the actual mechanics, because I think I would be more inclined to be impressed with it.
Well, they're so much more complicated than electric. They're
Oh, yeah.
They're 10 million times more complicated. And there's so many variations, like all the different things you can do to them. I mean, it's like a toy. I mean, it's a toy, and that's what they'll become. We'll always have combustion engines, but it'll become, it'll be kind of flip. Like Teslas now are the special thing, but eventually electric cars will be ubiquitous, and people will want that gas-powered car that makes that real noise. And they're fun,
I mean, aren't there a lot of electric vehicles that just fake the noise because they silently start now?
There are combustion vehicles that fake the noise, actually.
Really?
Race cars actually will do it because with emissions standards going up, there's like a lot of stuff they have to do with the exhaust to decrease the output, and it also decreases the sound, that sexy noise. So they'll actually augment the noise with computers.
It's kind of sad.
Which is really sad.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about automation on self-driving cars?
Sure. Did we talk about that a long time ago?
We did at some point, but since we're talking about cars.
Yeah. I think self-driving cars are, in our lifetime, probably going to have a much bigger impact on the freight industry than it is on individuals. I think there's a significant mind shift that has to occur that is not occurring, and I think is probably not going backwards, but I don't think it's going anywhere very quickly.
So to start with, you said that it is going to have some kind of impact on freight. What do you mean by that?
With trucking, or just automation of freight in general. I mean, all aspects of freight. I mean, automated tankers, automated trucks, automated whatever. Because there's a bottom line, right? There's a financial reason to do it even though it's probably quite expensive right now. Over the long run, as the cost comes down, it's going to be a huge advantage because you don't have to pay for labor anymore. It'd be a big, a significant capital cost out front, but over time it would save, presumably save a lot of money, especially as the cost of the technology decreases. So there's then you deliver cheaper consumer goods. I mean, and then you have higher profit margins. So I think that's going to happen. I mean, that's probably logical.
Yeah, once the technology's been proven to be, safe enough that you can effectively transition away.
I think the debate with that is when, not if. It's the disagreement is over when will it happen. And
yeah,
to what
I
extent.
completely agree. And the big thing here, it's not really about when the technology is 100% safe or 100% error free. It's about when it's better than human beings. Right.
I disagree with that a little bit because I think here's the thing. And I think this is the challenge with technology. Technology has to be better than human beings.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be perfect either.
It has to be a lot better, though, because if you have one accident with an automated truck versus 10 accidents with a non-automated truck, with the non-automated truck, who can you blame? You can blame the individual driver, right?
Yep.
You can say, though, that person did X, Y, and Z, and that caused the crash. With the automation, what you say is, and I'm not saying this is true, but the narrative is, well, that's all automation, right? It's so you don't say it about the truck driver. You don't say it's all truck drivers are bad. It was that one truck driver.
Yeah.
With automation, if one thing goes wrong, it's technology, not automation, technology in general. One thing goes wrong, it's like, oh, it's all of it.
It's also terrifying because you can't really ascribe motive, right?
Right.
And it's also not clear how the error happened.
Right.
Not always, right?
Right.
And so then there's almost a level of pervasive fear. It's like, oh, okay, there are a bunch of vehicles on the road, and I don't understand the rules in which they navigate this world, so I have no idea when they might just kind of like go crazy, right? And the kind of environments in which, self-driving vehicles make accidents are not the same ones that human beings would make accidents necessarily. Right.
I think the discussion about when is far more of a human psychological question than it is about a technology question. And I think that's the case with any kind of automation. It's always about the psychological perspective and the human perspective, not about the capacity or not capacity or the efficiency or not efficiency of the technology. Mm-hmm. That's not what it's about. Technological advancement doesn't occur when technology improves. It occurs when people want to use it. That's when technological advancement occurs.
So when do you think that we'll get to a place where human beings are accepting of self-driving vehicles?
Well, that's the discussion. I think self-driving trucks are going to come far before, because you have it's removed from the individual, right? It's a corporation running it.
Well, I guess let me ask you a different question. When do you think automated vehicles are safer than human-driven vehicles, and we shouldn't have humans on the road?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's safe. I don't think it's about safety. I don't think that's the driving thing. I think it's about control.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of control, like we were talking about earlier. The idea that, same with electric cars, that I want to be able to drive to Alaska if I have the whim tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. I think it's the same thing with self-driving vehicles. It's like, I want to have complete control just in case I do.
In past times, there used to be elevator conductors, right? People who would control an elevator and make sure that it gets to the right floor and stops there. And it was a really dangerous job because they wouldn't have the kind of mechanical controls that you would expect, and people often died in elevators, right? And then eventually we got to a place where machines could do the job better than humans, right. And then it became safer not to have humans in that role, right? At some point in the future, as long as technology continues to progress along this line and there aren't any major gotchas that would prevent self-driving cars from becoming safer and more consistent at a significantly larger rate than human beings, right? Like at a significantly higher level, like much safer than human beings are.
I don't disagree with that, but elevators are not part of the American psyche.
And horse-drawn covered wagons used to also be part of the American psyche.
I'm not sure if they were. I don't know. Maybe they were. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. But cars.
I do see what you're saying.
You
though.
see, cars have a special place.
You're saying that no matter how safe self-driving cars get, and no matter how obviously more dangerous it is to have humans on the road, because of the cultural baggage there, it's going to be very difficult to move us to a future in which we prevent humans from driving.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I think it will take longer. The technological advancement will occur quicker than adoption will. And I think the adoption time frame is a lot longer than a lot of people think. Because I think there's a lot of forces, cultural and psychological forces, impacting the rate of adoption with something so fundamental to being American as driving your own car.
Mm-hmm.
That I think this is largely why, you've had kind of niche dabblings in it, like Google dabbles, Tesla dabbles, Uber dabbles.
Yep.
But the big car companies, if they wanted to put $20 billion, $50 billion behind this, They could have a perfectly adequate, probably safer self-driving car on the road in a year. I mean, I bet they could, but I think they're really held back.
I think that gets into more complicated dynamics around businesses and the core competency and being able to pivot. I actually think that with the way company culture works and the way that businesses align with certain missions, it would actually be very difficult for a current dominant car company to transition and fully dominate the self-driving field. I really do think but that's more of like a business dynamics question.
Well, that's a really interesting point too, because Tesla probably will never, in all likelihood, be the one that actually mass markets these cars. It's probably going to be
purely self-driving cars.
It's probably going to be Ford or GM, right? I mean, it's going to be a company that has such massive scale that they're able to produce at such a low cost that it will be accessible.
The thing for me is I don't think it would be Ford or GM, and here's why. I think that the thing that is being produced, right, isn't a car in the traditional sense. Even what Tesla produces now isn't really a car if you're thinking about the paradigm in which these previous auto companies existed, right? A combustion engine vehicle, an automobile in that sense, is not the same kind of product as the computer on wheels that Tesla produces, right? And it's also not the same kind of product as the self-driving computer on wheels that whoever it is, Facebook, Google, whoever's working on this, will ultimately produce, right? And in the same way that it's unreasonable to assume that Macy's would be able to adequately compete in the market economy of digital e-commerce that Amazon has thrived on, I don't think it's possible for a company like Ford to be able to pivot radically and prevent themselves from being disrupted by a company like Tesla or like Facebook or whoever builds the next like computer on wheels
using those as examples, though. I think maybe it could be Toyota or something. What I'm saying is it's not likely, and history shows that the innovators are not the ones usually to scale products. That it doesn't happen that way, typically speaking. Now it can, but it is typically not. And I do think that yes, it will occur, but you have to have a lot of other financial incentives align first, and a scale to align first, the scale of demand to align first, before you actually have any wide-scale adoption. Whether it's Tesla or whoever that does it, I think it's kind of a moot point. But I think it's the fact that the demand is not there. The demand is simply not there for outside of niche markets. It's not there, and it needs to become there.
The demand for
self-driving cars.
And not yet.
Not yet. It's not there. I think it will get there. But I also would take issue with the fact that, or question the fact that, do you really think from a consumer perspective, maybe from the back end it's completely different, but from a consumer perspective, do you think a Tesla is any different than a Honda? From a consumer perspective. From someone, a soccer mom who has to drive her kids to soccer, do you think she sees a fundamental difference?
At this current point in the market and what Tesla can do, no.
I would say they're pretty similar products. You're operating in the same infrastructure, in exactly the same infrastructure. You're operating in the same space, as in the same vehicle. It's the same size of thing. It's governed by the same laws and rules and regulations of what it can look like.
I don't know about that. Look at the Cybertruck.
Yeah, which is not in production and never will be.
So I hear what you're saying. I guess what I'm thinking about is that at this current point in time, when you look at something like a Tesla, it doesn't look like anything radically different to any other automobile. But I think that the future potential of the kind of vehicle that a Tesla has started to explore is something that opens up opportunities toward a paradigm shift and a radically different product from a traditional automobile. And so I guess when I'm saying like it's a different market space, I'm not talking about the current rendition of it. I'm talking about the future potential of it.
Oh, I don't disagree. I think there's huge potential, and that's where we are headed over the long term. I think the debate is, again, as I said, about how long will it take to actually occur.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I have no idea. I do think that, and again, very different in suburban and rural areas, but in urban centers, I think adoption would happen very quickly if you could prove it to be safe enough and cost effective.
I have an interesting story. I want to see what you think of it. So I've when I bought my car, I bought the base model.
Mm-hmm.
And cars nowadays have all sorts of automated warning systems, like lane departure and brake assist if you get too close to someone to help you brake, and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's veering closer and closer to automation, right? Kind of getting people ready, if you were. Not that that's the actual purpose, but it kind of is in a way. I hate that shit. I have driven cars like that. It beeps at me all the time. It beeps. They're overly cautious, right?
No, you're overly dangerous.
No, but here's the thing. Here's the interesting thing. So now, I am an outlier, and I get that. But I've talked to other people as well, kind of because I mentioned I bought a car, and they ask, "Oh, what kind?" I said, we get talking, and they're like, "Yeah."
And I've never driven a car like that, so all my cars have been like
right,
at least the previous decade, right?
Well, and what they tell me, and actually my dad, who is a huge technology nerd, also tells me, he's like, yeah, I hate that stuff. I hate it beeping and feeling like it's trying to control what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I just try like a sample size of maybe 6 people, but they've all said that. So I'm like, does that hint at a lot longer adoption for fully self-driving vehicles if we can't even my small sample size can't even?
Well, here's I think the problem, right? It's almost like you have to go down in terms of inconvenience before you can go up and get to a convenient level where it's like while you have partially automated products, everything's a little bit shitty because you still have to be aware of when it fucks up and you still have to be involved somewhat, but it's trying to take away control from you, right? And only when you actually get to a place where you can fully take your hands off the wheel and not worry about shit when it's fully automated does it actually become helpful, right?
Yeah.
Like until you get to that point, it actually becomes a hindrance.
I guess I could see that, yeah.
Right? Like you're in the uncanny valley of automating the driving process, right?
No, it's just like it's like a partially developed software. It just like drives you fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it does
startup
something...
mentality going into your vehicles.
I know.
Terrifying.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was an interesting little. I was interested to hear other people say that because I thought, I'm the only person who thinks that way. And like, oh no, everyone's like, oh no.
Oh no, it sounds terrible.
I hate that stuff.
Like even I, as someone who's like pro automation and all that, I would probably have a terrible time with it.
Well, it starts beeping at you because you're too close, and I'm like, I know the car's there. I am in control. Stop beeping. You're distracting me from driving. You're making it's like my mother yelling at me in the back about how to slow down. It's making me worse as a driver. It's like, shut up. Let me concentrate.
Oh boy. Well, I need to go take a massive dump. So, do you want to call it here?
Yeah, I don't really have any final words on anything, but
all right. Well, talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week.
All right. See ya.
See ya.